Hey, Sun Devil fans, Brad Denny with 3TV, CBS5, and the Speak of the Devils podcast here. And welcome back to another episode of the Speak of the Devils Sit-Down series, where I bring you in-depth one-on-one conversations with key players, coaches, and other figures within Sun Devil athletics. Replacing a legend is hard. You add in some terrible injury luck, and it becomes a downright grueling task. But taking over a program and building it back into a winner is nothing new for Arizona State head women's basketball coach Natasha Adair. Her first season in Tempe was difficult, with a rash of injuries so bad it even prompted a couple game cancellations. But now with better health and a crop of talented newcomers, year two for the Sun Devils is off to a good start, as the ladies are currently 7-2 as the final season of Pac-12 conference play looms. On this episode, Natasha and I discuss the hot start to this season, the hard lessons learned from the adversity from last year, how the culture and the foundation is coming along in Tempe, and so much more. So let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Natasha Adair. All right, Coach, 9 games into the season, a nice 7-2 mark so far. Kind of in a broad sense, what are some of the things you've learned about your team over these first 9 games?
Well, I'll tell you that our team is resilient. I think that every contest so far, we're just building that culture, that chemistry, that camaraderie. It's a brand new team, from a year ago, 8 new players. And so that culture building is not going to happen overnight. But what I have learned, and I'm watching each one of them grow, they're taking on new roles. I think they're players that are stepping up. But every night, it seems like it's a new player emerging. So for me as a coach, you look at that and say, wow, okay, it's starting to make sense. The light bulb is on. They're finding their mojo. They're getting more confident as individuals and then collectively as a team. And so if you want to talk about how we're trending in the right direction as we're preparing, obviously, for Pac-12 play.
Now, as you mentioned, so many new pieces. Just kind of, maybe that's just the nature of every team in the portal era. About how long do you think it takes to, finally, as a coach, to get an accurate read on your team? You mentioned just kind of every night it might be a new player doing something. How long does it take, in the process, especially these days, to kind of get a true feel for what your squad has?
Well, I think you do a really good job, and I know we have. Just when they get in, it's all about culture building, and you use the off season to really learn. For me as a coach, learn about each individual player, learn their passions, what motivates them. But I think the non-conference is there for a reason. It takes those 11 to 12 games to really figure out, all right, what's my best defensive lineup? What's my best offensive lineup? If I need a 3 at the end of the game, who's going to knock down that shot? Because you learn that through playing. You learn that over time. So, again, having that non-conference slate really does prepare you for conference play because you learn about your team, but they also learn about themselves and each other. And so I think it does take, those 2 months before conference play starts to really learn your team and for them to learn one another.
So before the season, pick 12 in the preseason poll, did that add kind of a little chip on the shoulder, a little extra fuel to the fire?
I would say no, honestly, because again, we're coming off last year where, at one point we had 4 players and then 6. We just never could get into a rhythm because of all the injuries. Starting literally when we first got here. So I just felt like we were playing catch up. No one could really see the style of play, what it's like to play in my system. And so I think this year people are starting to get a glimpse of, okay, with a healthy roster, this is what they can do. So I don't think it's a chip on our shoulder. There are things obviously we want to prove, but I think anyone does that no matter if you're picked first or 12th. I think you are set out to win. The goal is to always win the Pac-12. The goal is to always put yourself in a position to make the tournament and then compete for a national championship. And so I just think this year with bodies, knock on wood, right? We just were able to do things that we just weren't able to do a year ago.
So recently came back from over a successful overseas trip in the Virgin Islands Paradise Jam, 2-1 record there. What kind of impact did that have on the team, kind of perhaps on the court, but also perhaps the team bonding and chemistry off the court?
Yes, and that's one thing that we really take pride in as a staff is spending time with one another and learning about our team and really pouring into our culture. So every year we designate a different book that we're going to read as a team. And so ours was The Positive Dog by John Gordon. And so we took time over there to spend with one another and reflect on the book and just talk about positive self-talk and positive awareness and just learn about each other again. And then we took time while we were over there to do a community service event. I did find out that we were the only team to do one.
Hmm.
Um, but that is just something that we try to do whenever, not just being on a over international trip or a trip like that, but it's just when we're in a different environment. Right now we're heading into the holidays, so we want to make sure we give back, we serve, because I think that's just so important for young people to know that they represent more than just themselves as basketball players or student athletes, that they're role models, and we want to make sure we always get out in the community and serve. So that was a great opportunity for us. And then I mean, you're facing a top 25 team, you're facing a team in South Florida that wins their tournament every year, pick to win it again, and then a team in High Point who won their tournament a year ago. So you're picking, you're playing teams, high caliber teams, and for us to learn from that Texas game, I thought we learned a lot, and to be able to respond 24 hours later and compete and really dominate uh, a tournament team in South Florida, also my alma mater. Um, and then with High Point, you know, that was a gritty win. I told our team that that was going to be the hardest one 3 days in a row. But you're preparing to win 3 days in a row in the Pac-12. You're preparing to win 3 days in a row in the NCAA tournament. So a lot of teaching moments. But you know what I loved was the fact that they got to snorkel, that they got to have some downtime, and just really spend time with each other as teammates and as family. So it was a great, I said it's a great trip, but a phenomenal business trip.
And then a little bit earlier in the season, participated in the Pac-12 SWAC Legacy Series, had a matchup
Yes.
against Grambling. What kind of impact do you think such partnerships like that, that are obviously centered around basketball, but also have another important message attached to them as well?
Well, everything is an opportunity to teach, right, and learn and grow. And so it was an educational opportunity for both programs. Grambling was here a year ago. And then again, we kind of closed out that series at their place. But when we first got there, we went and listened to their historic band practice. And for a lot of our players, they had never been in that environment. And just, that's the band is like the heartbeat of a historically Black college. And just to learn about the importance of it, and then just the legacy series in itself. It's just an opportunity to educate your student athletes, not just ours, both sets of student athletes, learn just the history of historically Black colleges and the importance of them, but also just took time to just break bread and learn about one another. So I just think anytime that our student athletes can learn and grow in any setting, then we're doing our job as leaders and teachers.
Now, looking back at last year, obviously, kind of a difficult year one, a lot of obstacles, as you mentioned. What did you kind of learn about yourself as a coach, going through, such kind of a difficult and kind of a obstacle and adversity filled year one?
Well, I think for me, this is my fourth kind of takeover, if you will. And so I learned that, you know what, there's always year two, and we're right on track. My first coaching job, when I took over a program for a program that had a previous coach that was there 20 plus years, a storied program, you have to come in and you have to really engage with the community. You have to engage with the fans. You don't want to lose tradition. And so you're just trying to rebuild and re-energize and put your stamp on it. And it doesn't happen overnight. And the same thing happened when I transitioned to Georgetown. I had to take over a program that had went through some changes. And in the second year, we had the third best turnaround in Division I. And so when I went to Delaware, same thing, took over a program. Tina Martin was there 25 years, had an 80+% winning percentage. And so I've done it before. So for me, last year was just, this is year one, and these are the circumstances, but I know that there's year two. And in year two, being able to address the things that were really plaguing us in year one, meaning just getting healthy. I think that was just the biggest thing. We weren't able to practice a year ago. We weren't able to have a preseason a year ago. There were moments where we couldn't even practice in preparation for the game because we just didn't have enough people. And so to be able to have a off season, a preseason, and now have depth, I just think that it's just trending in the right direction based on us being able to to perform the way that we know we need to and prepare the way that we need to.
And of course, with that trend line going in the right direction now and on the way up, overall, when you take kind of the macro view, how do you feel kind of the retool, rebuild of the program and kind of the culture foundation is coming along now that you have that year one under the belt, but now
Right.
you're looking ahead to year two with, hopefully, as you mentioned, continued good health?
Yes. Well, I think we're going in the right direction, honestly. I just love the camaraderie of the group. So many people, they'll watch our team or they'll just interact with us and they're like, there's no way that you have 8 newcomers. There's no way that this group, just came together. And I said, well, it's a tribute to my staff and even the players really buying in and just leaning into one another. And I just love the energy of the group, the competitiveness of the group, the want to. And so, they're all very hungry. They're all competitive. Now, when you said is there a chip on our shoulder, they understand the ones, especially the returners, what went on a year ago, and even the ones we brought into the program. These are winners. And so, I mean, you can see it in how Jaden Simmons, I think she is just off to a red hot start. But we have a newcomer in Jalen Ice Brown, right? I just think Treyana Chris, she was sidelined a little bit last year in and out due to some knee injuries, and she's come on strong, double-digit score. Journey Thompson, I just think, and then you have Maggie Besselink, who hadn't played in a couple of years and again took the off season to get healthy and get better. And you just see all the different pieces. I mean, we can play, we have a big lineup, we have a smaller lineup, we have a pressing lineup, and that doesn't happen without one, the depth, the buy-in, but just all the people, our support staff, everyone leaning in to make sure the student athletes are in the forefront of this and that they're healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, and just in a good place to perform.
No, yeah, obviously with those things now kind of coming together and working in the favor and moving in the right direction. When you kind of maybe look out and look at the kind of the near and middle term future, what are some of the kind of the remaining, like the biggest, obstacles, hurdles, things to that, in that process of kind of you getting the program where you want it to be that kind of remain?
Well, I don't go too far ahead. I kind of go one day at a time because you learn over, this is what, you're 26 for me. You learn over time that you stay in the moment. But what we do is we're celebrating victories as they come. Right now we're undefeated at home. And so we went through the whole month of November undefeated at home. So you check that box, right? The Beyond January tournament a year ago, we went 0-2. Well, we didn't this year. We won that tournament. So you check that box. So I think the more that you can continue to celebrate each victory, the small victories, it just propels you for the next one. And so if it's continuing, okay, we play this week, it's GCU this week, let's continue being undefeated at home, let's protect home court, and we just slowly check off those boxes because at the end of the day, we want to be in the best position going into Pac-12 play, but it's one game at a time.
So Kenny Dillingham has been pretty vocal about the need for ASU to kind of catch up on the NIL front. Obviously, NIL has had such a seismic impact across college sports in general. But now you see ASU as a whole, getting going. The Sun Angel Collective is a little bit going. Obviously, most of the media coverage is focusing on kind of football on the NIL front. But for women's basketball, what impact have you seen there? And also, where have you seen ASU perhaps in the recent months kind of try to get up to speed?
Well, again, first and foremost, I think we took a big step in hiring a general manager for NIL. Not every institution, has one of those, and I think that's a commitment right off the bat, saying how important it is for our program, for our student athletes, and just to let everyone know on the landscape that it is important here at ASU. And I'll tell you, I mean, it's a differentiator in even women's basketball. Your recruits want to know, they want to know kind of what we have and what we have to offer. And I think, the beauty of having Kenny being so vocal about it and even Bobby being vocal about it is people need to know, the community needs to know that this is the next phase for athletics, not just football, not just men's basketball, not just women's basketball, all sports. And so I think the more that we have on the forefront, knowing that, these are the opportunities that are out here for our student athletes. And then we can talk about them. We can share those stories. I know on our team, we do have some players that have specific deals. Obviously, I can't really talk much about them, but when it becomes every player, right? We want to get to the point where every player has those deals and every player has those opportunities. And I think we're trending in the right direction by having a specific person that is designated to help secure some of those deals and help just engage the community around what is NIL, what is name, image, and likeness, and why is it so important, and why we need them to really take part in this and get on board to help the student athletes just as a whole.
You mentioned her a moment ago, but Jaden Simmons obviously is kind of maybe a rarity these days in the portal era. You know, 4th year in Tempe, and each and every year you've seen the strides made,
Right.
having off to a really strong start this year. What are you seeing from her on the court, and what does she mean to the program as kind of one of these foundational pieces for you?
Well, and just that, I mean, she is the foundation. And to know Jaden is a fearless competitor. It's in her DNA. You know, both of her parents obviously went here, and so she is a Sun Devil for life, literally. And just in talking with her when I got here, she just talked about, you know, I want to continue moving this program forward. You know, I want to win here. And if there's an opportunity for her to play after college, then we're going to put her in the best position to do so. But right now, she's just so focused on team and being a leader. And Jaden is never going to be the loudest one in the room, but she for sure is going to be the most impactful. And she brings it every day in practice. You know, she's playing 40 minutes right now, and you would never know. I mean, she just is just a fearless competitor. She's a phenomenal teammate. And I have to say that. I mean, she has the pulse of everyone on this team and the respect, coaches included. And so for her to have just this start to her senior campaign and also sending a message, you know, players want to follow that, right? Teammates want to follow that when she's leading in such a phenomenal way. And so she's the heartbeat, she's the pulse, she's the foundation of our group. And you know what, we're going to make sure we continue to follow her and put her in those positions to where she can check off all of her boxes and accomplish her goals, especially in this senior year.
Another key piece in that starting lineup for you has been Maggie. And, you know, you mentioned coming back after some injury, she's battling through, you know, that how tough that can be to get back on the court.
Right.
You know, one of your key pieces there. What has she meant to the team? I believe it's after the season opening win, you say, like, this one's for Maggie and such. And it's kind of a testament to all that she's been through.
Well, Maggie is tough. That's the biggest word that I have to use, and just her tenacity and just her perseverance. I mean, just for her to have fought through all the injuries on the back end, and obviously when we came in, we're learning about her story, obviously knowing her on a national landscape as far as recruiting goes, and knowing her talent. But for her to work as hard as she had, obviously with the support of our sports performance, our training, I just think that she has just made such a commitment to get her body back healthy. And it's one game at a time. And, you know, I had to like pull her back because once she found out that she was going to be able to play, I mean, it was full speed ahead, but just being smart and not too much over usage early, but you can just see the impact. She's a matchup nightmare. She can shoot the threes. She can post inside. She has a high basketball IQ, but again, a phenomenal teammate. When we all found out, you could have seen how her team just embraced her, celebrated her, because they watched her on the sidelines. They watched her every day rehab and trying to get back out here. And I couldn't be happier for a person. I know how much this means to her. She loves this game through and through. And so to have her back on the court, from a talent perspective, obviously, I mean, I'm elated, but just as a person and knowing what she has gone through to get back to this point, I'm just super proud of her.
So some state bragging rights are coming up on the line over the next couple of games. GCU, and then a big, of course, matchup rivalry game against the Wildcats.
Yes.
What do you want to see from your squad over those two games?
The word is compete. I mean, and that's our word. That's the word that's on the board. And every pregame talk is compete. And I feel and consistency, because I think right now we're competing, but it's the consistency of that competitive effort for 40 plus minutes, however long it takes. And that's what we talk about. We're learning as a group. We see when we're clicking on all cylinders how good we can be, but it's those ebbs and flows where we really have to. And I think that's just the group growing, being a mature group, understanding one another, understanding moments when we're in the game, and those are pivotal moments. But I just, I'm excited about these two games coming up because, again, we get an opportunity to protect home court. We get an opportunity to compete against both rivalries. The game at GCU last year was crazy. I mean, it was 7,000 fans, great atmosphere. So I'm sure, right, that they're gonna have a little revenge going on. And then, of course, the school down south. I don't even have to say much about that game in itself. But the word is compete, and it's the consistency of competitive effort for 40+ minutes.
So for any Sun Devil fans out there who, maybe football season's done, they're looking for some more ways to support Sun Devil athletics, who haven't yet, been out to a game or seen this year's squad in person. If they come out, over these next games, what kind of team are they going to see? What kind of brand of basketball is going to be out there on the floor?
It's exciting. It's upbeat. It's fearless. It's competitive. We're pressing the whole game. It's fast, right? We're a team that takes pride, obviously, in defense. Our mantra is defend, rebound, run, and score in that order. But it's high octane. It's high energy. I promise them, when you come, you're gonna want to come back, and you're gonna want to bring someone with you. So if they're looking for something to do Friday night, definitely come to DFA and cheer us on. And of course, they cannot miss that game against that school down south on December 17th. We want them in the building, but they will not be disappointed. Our players are playing hard and competing, and it is high energy, and it's fun.
So when you kind of look over, obviously those two big games coming up, but then the rest of the season, obviously, getting as many W's as possible is the end goal. But What are the other key markers of success that you think that, over this 2023, 2024 campaign that, when the season wraps up, you can look back and be like, okay, we checked all these off. Right. This made it a successful season.
Well, I think the biggest thing is, did we improve? Did we improve holistically? And we have to be able to evaluate that. Were we competitive in every contest? Do I feel like our field goal percentage was where it needed to be? I want us to be a team that consistently rebounds, total 40+ rebounds a game, plus 20 offensive rebounds a game. So there are markers. Are we 80% from the free throw line? Those are team evaluations. Did we have a positive assist to turnover ratio? Did we have players represented, in the off-conference standings and things of that nature? But the biggest thing, the evaluation is, did we improve as a team? Did our players get better individually? And that's a measure, for me as a head coach, obviously for our assistant coaches who pour so much into our student athletes, and for themselves. The biggest thing as a coach, when those players have aha moments, or the tireless hours in the gym when they're working on that one pet move or that combo move, and you see them have those aha moments in game, that's the evaluation of, did we get better? Obviously, it's rack as many wins as you can, but if we're taking care of the things that we need to do from a team perspective, then those wins will happen. So I think it's just constantly teaching. Right? We're teaching every day. We're reevaluating. We're readjusting. We're making sure our players not just do it because we're telling them to do it, that they understand. Like, this is another class for us. Basketball the gym is the classroom. And so we really want our players to know why they're doing what they're doing, have confidence in what they're doing. So I want you to see all that when you see them. Confident leaders, great communication out there, a culture that's just a very strong culture, and then you'll see the rest of it come to fruition. So I just think it's all encompassing, and but the biggest word is just improvement in every area, and a team that competes. I want you to leave our game obviously with the win, but either way you can say, wow, they left it all on the floor, they finished on empty. This team truly competes.
I'd like to thank Natasha for taking the time to talk with me for this episode. I'd also like to thank Steve Rodriguez of ASU Media Relations. Make sure you subscribe to Speak of the Devils on the podcast platform of your choice for more great episodes featuring guests such as Kenny Dillingham, Trenton Bourget, Joey Ramos, TJ Septenfelter, JJ Van Neal, and so many more to come. And also be sure to give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at bdenny29.